What's up, guys? So this is going to be my variation guide of a pretty well-known build from Jung Roan 2 leagues ago, Connected Blast of Clustering on a Necromancer, and I'm going to be pretty much giving a more updated, more adapted version of the build after the nerfs and like the changes they've done since Keepers League and Mirage League. So for those who don't know about how KBOC, Clustering Connected Blasts, scales with Corpse Pact on a Necromancer, pretty much we're spawning a lot of corpses from Desecrate Spellslinger, and we are using Bone Offering and Volatile Dead with Spellslingers to consume the corpses. Bone Offering gives a lot of defenses, block and spell block, but consuming the corpses is what matters the most because we get attack speed per corpse consume, and you just need to consume 50 corpse within the last 4 seconds to max at 200% attack speed, which is really easy to hit with how much corpse we're spawning and how much we're consuming. So before I delve into all the important info about the build, just gonna give a quick, why play this build instead of like all the upcoming meta builds like Winter Orb, Penance Ignite, Static Strike Slayer, and all those really strong day 1, day 2 builds that scales really well later on. So for sure, Connected Blast of Clustering Necromancer is definitely going to be weaker early on, especially before getting Whispers of Infinity Amulets, which should be a lot cheaper this league because the amount of people playing this build should be a lot less compared to last league. And we're going to have less clear and single target damage compared to those builds early on. But after we scale like at least like 10 to 20 Divines in the first 2 days of the league, we'll have pretty similar clear and I'll say relatively similar single target damage even to some of the more meta builds, and we'll have a lot more defenses. And my main reason for going with like this build instead of other ones is mainly just because I want to be able to get block capped really early on with a good amount of like hit pool, like 7k like ES or more on a CI or a hybrid life ES setup that I have on my POB. And I'm also going to be scaling armor. I think scaling armor ES. Shout out to Snake and Gucci, by the way, because those two guys last league were the only two people who actually invested into armor and ES at the same time out of like 2,000 people playing KBOC, and it makes a big difference because I replicated both like different setups, and their setup is so much better than like pathing towards the right of the tree, investing into just plain ES and block. So I would definitely recommend the setup. And if you know me, I'm going to be farming div cards. I'm going to be trying to farm div cards from day 2. I think it's a lot of potential because, early div cards like, even the fusing cards, GCP cards, potentially chromatic cards might be worth something. And then, of course, like, Nurse, Patient for Headhunter or, Raw Divine cards. And if you want to farm those div cards and target farm them like I'm going to be doing, you need to deal with the Scarab of Plenty monsters. And, if you've done them before, you would know they're very rippy. I think a lot of people agree that these monsters on like, on a T16.5 map is actually rippier than like Juice Breach because their after death spells like hits like crazy fizz. I believe it's a mix of lightning and chaos damage. And I tested it a lot. This build will deal with that really easily with all our defense layers, and we're gonna have a lot of damage and clear later on after we brute force the first day, I guess. Yeah. So a lot of people are going to be asking how bad are the nerfs. The nerfs overall, so I did all the POB calculations on a pretty generic setup with without Whisper's Amulet early on. You can probably hit 5 to 6k mana. That will be around 10 to 11% less damage from the mana mod nerf. And with the Arcane Might, with Whisper's Amulets, your mana gets reduced, so there's actually a less damage nerf, and also you get a lot more damage scaling from Whispers of Infinity Amulet, so the damage you get from Fizz from max mana is not that crazy, so it's only like a 6% less damage nerf with the amulet. And the Arcane Might, surprisingly to me, is actually more impactful than the less mana. After I did some POV and calcs, when you have around 250 or more spell damage, which you only would hit if you have Elegant Hubris with 2 spell damage notables, that will be 10 to 15% less damage. If you don't have an Elegant Hubris and you don't have much spell damage on, let's say, the wand or shield, you'll probably suffer from like less than 10% damage. It's around 5% for 100% spell damage. I think you hit 120 just from the passive tree and nothing else on the gear, which might be pretty much what I'm going to be rocking with early on. And yeah, it's not too bad. You just gotta be prioritizing other stats over spell damage if both options are very similar. Like, you know, if you get a crit multi node versus spell damage and they both give similar damage right now, you pick crit multi next league, right? That's how you would probably scale into this. Quick disclaimers, all right? Do not play this build if you don't want to deal with low single target before we get Whispers of Infinity Amulets. This will be expensive day one, but I think it'll drop down really fast. Last league it was 10 div on day one, and it dropped down to, I believe, 2 divines in 3 days. And I think it's going to be even cheaper this league because of the number of players who are going to be playing other builds. And we checked already on stream that 90% of the players who were using this amulet were KBOC gamers. So less KBOC gamers, less amulets being bought. And also the amulets, I believe the boss that drops this amulet also drops Golden Charlatan. And if, you know, if people are going to be investing into that early on, then other items usually go down in price as well. And don't play this build if your PC can't handle heavy graphic intensive gameplay. This is really important, by the way. If you played KB before and did Breach and, you know, your computer is fine, then that's completely good. But, you know, quick warning, I know that a lot of people crashed in Breach last league. Breach won't be as meta this league, and I know hopefully the new league mechanic in Abyss isn't too crazy in terms of lag. But this build for sure has a lot of like attacks per second, right? But we're just scaling a shit ton of attack speed and AoE and proj. So make sure you you know, you have a PC that can handle this build. If you value visual gameplay, visual clarity gameplay, then don't play this build too. When we scale later on, like having 20 to 30 div worth of gear, we'll have so much defenses that we can actually face tank a lot of stuff. So visual clarity is not too important, but if you do value that, don't play this build. And don't play this build if you don't care about defenses. Because the whole reason why I'm playing this build is for the high defenses like after day one of the league. And our clear and single target is going to be kind of trash early on too. But yeah, once we get Whispers of Infinity, go CI, get 20k armor with 8k plus ES, max block attack and spell with a block ES on block shield, then you know, we'll be tanking everything and having a lot of damage as well. Alright, so for the leveling through campaign, I did a few runs already, and I really like this Kinetic Fusilier setup. So from Act 1 to 11, you use, you know, regular Kinetic Bolt with Holy Flame Totem, spike and spell damage, and at level 12, you want to set up a 2 blue, green. Oh, I guess you don't have to care about the colors. You want a double Kinetic Fusilier 3-link at least with volley and added lightning, because this allows you to kind of like alternate between both and have like a Gatling gun like effect. And also the Kinetic Fusilier, for those who don't know, the 12 maximum hovering projectile limits is per gem. You can actually have 24 if you use 2 different gem setups. So shout out to Jung Road. I saw him doing this on stream, and I did it myself on stream twice, and it felt very, very good. And the known leveling setup for this build before was to use KB at level 28 with double spell slinger setup with Tornado and Hydrosphere and a Ballista Totem setup. But after yesterday's stream, you can check the VOD if you want, I stuck with Kinetic Fusilier until Cruel Lab, and it felt better. It felt a lot better. Single target is better, there's auto-targeting, and I guess better visual clarity as well. And you get to move more while, like, you know, Izaro is trying to attack you or the boss is trying to attack you because of the auto-targeting. I would recommend it. Nerf-wise, you know, the changing Kinetic Fusilier, right? It's overall a nerf. They're lowering the attack speed, but reducing the base duration they need to wait. I think it's still going to be completely fine because the attack speed only matters if we're summoning or, like, you know, producing the projectiles a low amount per second, but we're producing a lot, right? +2 on volley, and then eventually +4 on greater multiple projectiles. We'll end up spawning 8 hovering projectiles in one cast, so which is fine. And a lot of people told me that the less duration buff is actually going to feel very nice in campaign, and I can see that being the case. But, you know, if for some reason the low attack speed nerf really feels bad, then I would recommend just going back to the Kinetic Blast setup, and you swap for Kinetic Bolt and Barrage support, mainly for Izaro, for Cruel Lab Izaro, for single target, because you don't want to mess that up. But yeah, Kinetic Fusilier is very strong. Cruel Lab, you know, swap to the KB setup. This POB, I think I refined it pretty well on stream and off stream from start to end, up till you get Whispers of Infinity, like a 40 div setup, 40 to 50 divine setup. Actually, it's probably less than 40 divines, but you can feel free to swap the layouts and the loadouts and see which ones you'd like to use. eventually when we reach to Merc Lab, I would recommend buying Connected Blast of Clustering before you do Merc Lab. Um, with the new changes to the axe in Mirage League of dropping a lot more currency early on, I feel like it's gonna be really easy and really easy to buy Connected Blast of Clustering with how much raw currency you drop in axe before you finish Merc Lab. But if for some reason the gem is still really expensive, which it shouldn't be, it should be a lot cheaper this league after the nerfs and all the other builds coming out that people are going to be playing. But yeah, if it's still expensive, then you can swap later in maps. But myself, I would definitely be trying to get Connected Blast with Clustering before Merc Lab. Honestly, if I can get it by Cruel Lab, which might be possible because people are going to get Transfix Gems in Normal Lab and Cruel Lab, and they might try to sell that. I will try to get that as well. So for the level 70 setup, past level 70 when we enter maps, just, a few uniques to look out for. Dojo's Tenure is very strong. Rumi's Concoction should be not too expensive. Healthy Mind will be expensive, but that should be the first thing you should go for. It might cost like a Divine or two. Mana Stack has gone nerf, so I would like to see Healthy Mind to be cheaper than last league, for sure. And you just want to scale pretty much, make sure you res cap, get a decent amount of life, mana, and flat damage on gear if possible. And spell damage on shield and weapon is pretty nice too, but make sure to get all your res cap and whatnot. So I think on like around 15 hours of gameplay time, I'll probably finish campaign in 4 hours, get to T16 within less than an hour and a half. Like I'll have like at least 10 hours like of farming, just focusing on currency with the Atlas and whatnot. I'm pretty sure by day 2 I will have this set up with Crown of the Inward Eye, Anathema, Shadow's Revelation. Anathema is, in my opinion, a lot better than Fabo and Kikazaru, but if Fabo and Kikazaru is cheap for some reason, then definitely go with that before Anathema. And Shadow's Revelation is pretty much mandatory. And one thing to keep note of is that Shadow's Revelation, if we're using that before Whispers of Infinity, which converts our mana cost into life or ES, or it converts it to ES cost, we don't get mana regen anymore. And one thing that's really important to spec into is recover mana when you use a skill. This mastery pretty much helps us recover our mana when we get to the situation where we get to 0 mana and we can't regen it, and we can only rely on leech. But the leech is actually not enough, so you need the recover on when you use a skill. Now that's really important. And this variation of the tree, shout out to Snake, who showed me the setup, and I think it's very, very strong compared to like the previous setup that people went with. It looks like a bit of a mess, but it's actually pretty efficient, scaling armor and ES and getting instant leech with the charges and frenzy charge on hits and the mark node. I think this is pretty much what I'm going to be going for. You would want to get a cluster Unholy Might as soon as possible. You can get the medium cluster. I would not recommend the large cluster unless you have a lot of currency, but medium cluster with Unholy Might is something I'll be looking out for pretty much after hit level 90 or like around 90, because that allows us to not care about converting our fizz to lightning anymore, because we're pretty much, permanent have this Unholy Might since we're attacking so much per second and we're critting a lot. And chaos damage also penetrates through energy shield, so it's net positive damage as well, and the tree is more efficient to path without having to scale elemental damage anymore. I'm gonna give a quick little clip showcase of my boy Snake, who helped me send this video to me from last league, just showing how tanky the build can be with just around 15k armor, 9k ES on block shield, and cap block. And actually I don't think he's cap block because his roomies goes down every now and then. But the Divine Shield and the ES on block is, it's gonna be pretty nice. Like this part of the build is not changed at all. This will be the same for next league. Only our damage got nerfed. So, it's gonna be pretty nice. Another showcase clip that he sent was a most popular farm last league, and people complain and have problems with Varun on a Giga Juice Breach map. It was a increased monster damage, double Varun, increased AoE as well. That little like scythe cyclone attack that killed so many people last league. I think we all know. But with the defense layers we have, we can face tank it, and it'll be the same this league. Yeah. Quick little FAQ session. Y scale armor ES. With KBOC Necro, we're gonna be taking a lot of hits because our average damage per hit is quite low. So we won't be killing monsters instantly until after a few attacks, which means we'll definitely get hits by attacks and spells. And we have a lot of ways to deal with spells, you know, capping res, getting spell block, attack block. But with attack block, it's not that insane. That 25% chance of getting hits is really bad with Fizz attack damage, and the armor solves that a lot. And we're gonna have permanent endurance charges too with Bastion, aggressive Bastion. Yeah, it's gonna be very nice for that. Is Necro better than Deadeye? Comparing these two ascendancies with KB is actually really bad because they use two different KB skills. You know, one's regular KB, one's KBOC. But I did do a Deadeye run myself because I love Deadeye. But unfortunately, it's a 90-day comparison. Necro is much stronger than Deadeye with scaling mana and using the clustering gem. And I will only recommend Deadeye as like a second build or after you have like Headhunter at least. Or if you're going to be doing like low single target farms. Yeah, that'll be not too bad. Is single target damage trash? It will definitely be trash until we get Whispers of Infinity Amulet. Even with Whispers of Infinity, if we're comparing it to like, let's say, like probably Winter Orb or Static Strike Slayer, you know, a single target's probably gonna be worse than them. But our clear is gonna be very strong, and we do have enough damage to like definitely clear all 4 Void Zones ourselves. I can definitely see people having to pay for a carry from Maven though, if you don't know the mechanics well enough, or if you're not progressing through the gear upgrades appropriately or efficiently. And one thing that I'm adding to the build I didn't see that many people do last league actually is I'm going to be using a Ballista Totem setup with KBOC, and I tested it myself. With Focus Ballista, it's very, very strong because Focus Ballista attacks when you attack, and the higher attack speed you have, the higher trigger rate that you have the Ballista Totem to shoot out the, you know, the second Kinetic Blast of Clustering setup, and that's going to help a lot for single target. I've been told by a lot of people who played KBOC last league that they regret not doing a second Ballista Totem after I showcased it on stream.